Hey guys, in this video we're going to be going over what is the cloud. So the cloud has basically become a meme at this point, surrounded by buzzwords, but in this video I'm going to try to kind of explain what it is and how it works in human terms that you can actually understand. So when people talk about the cloud, generally they're going to be talking about the three main providers, which are the tech giants, and their clouds provided by Google, Amazon, and Microsoft. So at its core, really all the cloud is using somebody else's infrastructure, their servers, instead of buying your own. So if anybody tries to make it sound more complicated or magical than that, it's really not. It's just kind of outsourcing your technology. So with that said, let's jump into some of the reasons why you'd actually use the cloud. So the two main ones are going to be flexibility and specialization. So the big thing for companies is that if you're managing your own infrastructure, you have to spend a ton of money up front on costs for your servers and stuff like that. And generally, if you've ran a big website, you'll realize that your average usage rate of your stuff is around maybe a couple percent, but you have to buy a lot of excess for those occasional, maybe once a week or during holidays if you're an e-commerce website. You need that extra capacity for those occasional spikes, but the rest of the time you're basically just wasting those resources. So the big benefit of the cloud is that you have on-demand scaling. In some cases you can scale up and down in just a couple of minutes. So if you get a sudden spike, you can scale it up and you'll be able to handle that extra traffic, and then once it's gone you can drop it off, so that saves you a ton of money. Second reason to be specialization. So your customers don't pay you because of your skills at managing a server. They pay you because whatever service you provide. If you're in e-commerce, they want to buy your product, that type of thing. So what the cloud allows you to do is basically outsource that specialization, that infrastructure management, to companies like Google and Amazon who have world-class expertise in that area. Basically, you can see these companies that have moved, companies like Kellogg's, like traditional enterprise, they're not going to be able to attract world-class talent. That's just reality. No world-class software engineer wants to go work for Kellogg's. So by using the cloud, you can get the benefit of having that world-class talent by basically purchasing it from Google or Amazon or Microsoft. But it's also not just old-school companies that use the cloud. There's a lot of startups and high-tech companies like Airbnb, Twitter, PayPal that take advantage of the cloud because they also want to be able to just focus on their product. They don't have to worry about managing low-level stuff. They just want to be able to add features for the customers so that they can basically move faster, add features faster. So in addition to the infrastructure, a lot of the cloud providers are moving higher up the food chain, where they provide managed services like databases as well, so that basically they can differentiate themselves from the other providers. They don't want to just compete on the lowest level. They want to be able to move up the food chain and charge more for those services. The final thing is economies of scale, which is the fact that Amazon can, because of their size, they can get better deals on servers than you'd ever be able to get, which allows them to charge less. So that's another thing, is that just pure cost savings because of that size difference between your business and Amazon or Google. So right now, it might sound too good to be true. Sounds like it's all positives, but there are some situations where you'd probably not want to use the cloud. So some costs are, the obvious is potential lock-in. If you build your entire business on Amazon or Google's infrastructure, they know you, they have you locked in, and they can then raise the price after your initial contract. They might give you a promotional first contract where it seems really affordable and stuff, but after the fact, once they know they have you effectively trapped, they can jack up the price on you. So that's one thing. There's also data transfer, which is another way they lock you in, which is they'll charge you next to nothing to move your data onto their cloud, but then if you want to try to leave, their transferring out of their storage is very expensive. Another thing is where they make their money is generally on bandwidth. So if you're wanting to make like a YouTube competitor or something, you wouldn't want to use the cloud, because in a lot of cases that's where they make their money. For example, Amazon, in some cases they can charge 5 to 6 times more than you'd get if you had your own servers and were paying like a internet service provider for bandwidth. So there's some cases where you wouldn't want to use the cloud depending on what type of business you're running. So one example of a company that started off on the cloud and then moved off is Dropbox. They do file storage and stuff. They started off on Amazon, and eventually as they grew, it reached a point where it made much more sense for them to basically build their own data centers as opposed to continuing to use Amazon. So like I said, when not to use cloud earlier, I just said the high bandwidth business. Another one is when your developer time starts to cost less than cloud pricing. When you're a startup and you might only be spending a couple $100s a month on hosting, it makes sense to use the cloud because a developer's time probably costs maybe $100 to $200 an hour. So if you're only spending $500 a month on cloud hosting costs, it makes sense to just use the cloud. But once you start to scale up and you reach the size of something like Dropbox, where they're probably spending millions, if not tens of millions of dollars a month, then it makes sense to really consider just building out your own team to manage your infrastructure and building your own data centers. So in most cases, if you're a startup, you're starting out, it's going to make sense to take advantage of the cloud just because it'll allow you to focus on your product and build out features. But eventually, if you reach that point where your business is growing a lot, there's cases where you could save a lot of money and be more profitable if you move off the cloud. So that's basically it for this video. I just want to do a quick introduction on what the cloud is and kind of explain some of the pros and cons real quick. In a future video, I'll probably go over some alternatives, like how to manage your own infrastructure, the different alternatives that you have. So there's co-location is one. There's also infrastructure as a service providers like DigitalOcean as well. So if you're interested in those future videos, be sure to subscribe. If this video helped you out, hit like. But for now, that's it.